slide. Now everybody, come on. All right, keep them going. When I get older, I will be stronger. They'll call me freedom, just like a waving flag. So wave your flag, now wave your flag, now wave your flag. Yeah. When I get older, I will be stronger. They'll call me freedom, just like a waving flag. So wave your flag, now wave your flag, now wave your flag. Everybody will be singing. We'll all be singing.
Hey, that was good for the 9 o'clock service. We should do that every single time. That was amazing. Hey, we're glad you're here, and if you're here for the first time, we're certainly glad you're here. We don't do that all the time, but you get to keep did they get to keep their flags? I should have asked. 11 o'clock, they don't get any flags. Anyway, we're glad you get to keep your flags. Well, and welcome to summer. If you're new, we're especially glad that you're here. Maybe you're visiting from out of town, or maybe you just moved into the area. And we want you to know what we're all about as a church. We have a mission. Our mission statement is to inspire people to follow Jesus. We're one of 8 Atlanta area churches on the north side of the city. There are 4 campuses down on the south side of the city, Peachtree City and Noonan. So we got you surrounded. And we have 2, the other thing is that I'm so excited about, is anybody, and maybe it's just me because my kids, but anybody else excited about soccer and the World Cup coming? We get to host. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Atlanta's hosting 8 or maybe 9 of those matches, so that's gonna be a whole lot of fun. But that's soccer. Over in the West Auditorium, we have a baseball mom. Holly, how are things over in the West?
Yes, we do. Hey, things are going good in the West. The West is where it's at. We're waving our flags. We're ready. We are ready. That's right. Hey, and we also
I don't
have
think
a
you're
gathering.
ready. That wasn't very enthusiastic
was it
over
kinda
here in the
woo?
West.
They're saying we can do better, West.
There they are. Okay.
Yeah, you should see the crowd we're doing this with. It is mighty, okay? So, yeah, we're having fun in the West. Also, here's what you need to know about this room. We have a gathering in here in between services every single Sunday. We call it Sundays in the West. It is designed for those of you who are single or in the empty nest phase of life. We gather them here. We have some coffee, conversation, and it's just a good hang. So if that's you, join us in between services. We would love that. And if you're in a different season of life, no problem. We got a way for you to connect as well. And so I would love to invite you to stop by Connections right after the service today. My friend Jane and her team are in there. They'd love to tell you what all we have to offer here at North Point and just get to know you if you're ready to be known.
Yep.
And then the other way we keep you in the loop around here is something that we call our top 3 website. And the number one thing on the top 3 site is called Parent Summit Online. Now, every summer, we know you're home all summer long with your kids. And so we know parenting's hard, and we know you want to get it right, and we want to help. And so we create some online resources to help you out during the summer.
Yeah, and this one is especially for those of you who are wrestling with the whole digital thing with kids. When my kids were teenagers, we were just leaving the flip phone generation. Do you remember that? Where if you wanted to send a message, it was like, that you have to A, B, C. It took like 30 minutes. It's like you might as well call them. Anyway, so we were on the front end of the craziness that so many of you were having to deal with as parents, and so we want to help you with that. So
yeah,
Holly,
you're so lucky because see, our kids, they have the whole world on their phone in their pocket, which is hard to deal with as a parent because y'all probably remember this. When we used to talk on the phone, it was like a cord attached to a wall.
You are so old.
I know, they remind me all the time that I was born in the 1900s. Yeah, so this is why we need to stick together, parents. And so we've made this free resource for you. And we brought in some experts that know the technology world. In fact, our own Joel Thomas is one of these experts. He's always on the cutting edge of things. And he recently went out to Silicon Valley and went to an AI summit, and he has brought back the learnings to us. We have a fascinating conversation in this resource, and he's gonna teach us how to outsmart AI at least for right now,
Yeah.
okay? So this is a free resource for you. All you have to do is go to the top 3, sign up. We will send it to your inbox.
Yep, and if you have brothers or sisters or relatives in other parts of the country or other parts of the world that you think this would be helpful for, please feel free to send them the link to this resource. It is free, and we'd love for as many parents as possible to be part of that. Speaking of Joel, Joel's kicking off a brand new series today that is so exciting. We've been talking about this for such a long time. It's entitled Under Clear Blue Sky. Extremely, extremely practical. He's going to be coming to us from Buckhead Church this morning. Also this morning, we are baptizing Carson. Carson has been a staff member for years. Our staff absolutely loves Carson. In fact, he told me he invited 45 people. So it's Team Carson over here. Yeah, so that's amazing. We love him. We're going to sing a little bit before that with Tan, Clarissa, Mark, Chase, Claudia, and Michelle. This first song is one we sing a lot. And if you're new to faith or you're just exploring faith for the first time, I just want to explain the opening line of this song. The song is Christ is my firm foundation. It's called Firm Foundation. The opening line is Christ is my firm foundation. Here's what we mean by that as Christians. Everybody has a framework that they use to try to make sense out of life. And the longer you live, at times it seems like life makes less and less sense, not more and more sense. There are things you predict, there are things you expect, and then there are the random things in life. And for those of us who are Jesus followers, we have discovered that Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, that Jesus' teaching in parables, and what Jesus says about God our Father is a framework that helps us make sense out of life. So when we say that Christ is our firm foundation, that's what we mean. So if you would, stand up, say hey to somebody, and we'll sing this together. Here we go.
When it rained and when the wind blew, you were there. You had my back. Thank you so much. Rain came, wind blew, my house was built on you. I'm safe with you. I'm gonna make it through. Rain came, my house was built on you.
just want to speak the name of Jesus till every dark addiction starts to break, declaring there is hope and there is freedom. I speak Jesus, 'cause your name is power, your name is healing, your name is life. You break every stronghold, shine through the shadows, burn like a fire. I just want to speak the name of Jesus over fear and all anxiety, to every soul held captive by depression. I speak Jesus, 'cause your name is power, your name is healing, your name is life. You break every stronghold, shine through the shadows, burn like a fire. Shout Jesus from the mountains, Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over every enemy. Jesus for my family, I speak the holy name, Jesus. Shout Jesus from the mountain, Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over every enemy. Jesus for my family, I speak the holy name, Jesus. We need your name, we need your name. Oh, your name is healing, your name is life. We declare your name. Break every stronghold, shine through the shadows, burn like a fire. Your name is power, your name is healing, your name is life. You break every stronghold, shine through the shadows, burn like a fire. I just want to speak the name of Jesus over every heart and every mind, 'cause I know there is peace within your presence. I speak Jesus. Well, we get to continue this celebration with the baptism of Carson, so you guys can take a seat and turn your attention to the screen.
Hi, I'm Carson Augello. Growing up, faith really wasn't a priority in my home. In 7th grade, a baseball teammate invited me to transit. The first time I went, it felt overwhelming, and honestly, I didn't like it. But he invited me again, and I decided to give it another shot, and that time it was different. I started coming consistently through 7th grade, and that's when I learned how important small group was for me. Small group became a safe place where I could share, be honest, and not feel judged. That's when I became an open book. Going into my freshman year, I went to Inside Out, the walk. We were given the opportunity to accept Jesus into our lives, and when that moment came, I stood up without hesitation. Junior year, I made some poor decisions that ultimately took me off the track that I was previously on. I started to feel ashamed for myself and felt sorry for myself and felt like that God didn't want me anymore. I quickly abandoned my faith and tried to live a life on my own, falling into bad habits, temptations, and everything that I was learning to stay away from. And at a moment of complete weakness, that's when I started to pray. I felt like God was with me the whole entire time, walking with me when I chose to not walk with him. He reminded me that even on my worst days, he was always going to be with me and he was never going to leave my side. And that feeling that I had in that moment that took over my body is something that I'm never going to forget, because it felt like his hand was on my shoulder saying it was okay. From that point on, it just felt like I was never living by myself anymore. I knew I always had a safe place to go to. He always reminded me that no matter what, he was always going to be there for me, and that just gave me so much confidence to go about the rest of my days. In the past, I would use all these other things to satisfy me for moments of time, but now my days are fully satisfied because of God's grace. Him giving us the option to have eternal life with him is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I know that he took the ultimate sacrifice for me, and there's no reason for me to live with my shame and guilt anymore because of the decision he made for us on that cross. I'm choosing to get baptized today to put Jesus first and fully trust him with the rest of the days of my life.
Carson, believe it or not, I actually remember that walk. I must have been standing close to you because I remember the impact that it had when you stood up. I also remember it because all the Inside Out leaders were supposed to read this First Steps books for new believers, and I hadn't read it yet. So, I also remember that junior year. I remember missing you and some of the guys when the Inside Out trips became less frequent. But I say you and the guys because where Carson went, others followed. And when Carson didn't go, people didn't go. I remember when you first started working with North Point, stacking chairs. I distinctly remember that anybody who worked with Carson instantly started working harder and was more detail-oriented just because they were working with you. I remember the first full-time job at First Baptist. I remember the operations job at North Point. I remember talking about girls in my office. But ultimately, I'm excited that I get to know the man you are today. I'm excited that I was allowed to see the leader you've become. And, this is, okay. Yeah, I'm excited that I got to see the leader you've become. And I just want you to know that whether you like it or not, people take notice of what Carson decides to do with his life and the actions he chooses to take. You are insightful, dedicated, and thoughtful in everything you do. I love you, and it's based on your profession of faith and your decision to follow Jesus that I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
What you just witnessed up there, that's what the body of Christ looks like. Josh and Carson both, they've been on our staff. They've grown up in our ministries. They've walked together and followed Jesus together. And just because they're on a stage or just because they're a staff member doesn't make them any different than me and you. We're all on this journey, just trying to follow Jesus one step at a time. And it is an honor to celebrate with Carson today. We are big fans. We love that he came to faith in our student ministry. We love that we got to spend a season on staff with him. But what I love most about his story is this. It reminds us that going off course is not the end of the story. That we have a heavenly Father who redirects us back to his grace and to his goodness and to his love. And some of you are sitting in here today and you're waiting on baptism. You're waiting until you get this whole Christian life figured out. You're waiting until you need a little less course correction. But welcome to being human. This is the journey. And here's the truth. Jesus has already settled the matter. In Romans, Paul tells us, if you declare with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, and you believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. So baptism is just an outward expression of a belief that's already in your heart. And if you're here today and if you're a follower of Jesus and you just haven't taken that step of baptism, well, I have an invitation for you. We're gonna host a baptism Sunday on July 26th. No video, no pressure, no 2-minute testimony, just a simple step of obedience. So if you're feeling the nudge this morning, pay attention. This may be the Lord inviting you into your next step. To learn more about Baptism Sunday, you can visit our Top 3 website. Right now, if you will, turn your attention to the screens as we continue our service.
Brought to you by Warner Brothers Studios. I mean, is anybody else, I'm not gonna be offended. Is anybody else thinking, I don't think I wanna listen to a guy talk. I wanna watch more of that. You don't have to raise your hand in the front row. That's not cool. Hey, we're starting a new series today, and it's called Under Clear Blue Sky, and it's an epic story, which fits the epic title package, but it's an epic story about Noah and the flood. Now, before we jump in, I just wanna say, if you're new to us or new to the Bible, I recognize there's all sorts of challenges or obstacles with old stories like this and the story of Jonah and others of these Old Testament stories. And it's why, I honestly, oftentimes preachers skip these stories because there's so many obstacles or potholes. I actually want to step in a couple of them, just to start right out. I want to step in a couple of potholes that maybe you might even be thinking, like some of you are thinking you're worried about the historical accuracy of the story. Like, can we really learn from something? The truth is there's no archaeological evidence of a worldwide flood. Now, some people would make an argument that there is. There's a global flood perspective, and there's a local flood perspective. There's people who'd say there is actual evidence that there were certain people and animals before and after the flood, so everything wasn't consumed in the flood. And what about the dinosaurs? And so there's all sorts of questions about this, about historical accuracy, and I'm gonna try to address some of those, but I know that's floating around in some of your minds, and I'm not, just so you know, I'm not like oblivious to that. And then the second one is, some of you struggle with the Old Testament God. Like, some of you are thinking, can we just stick to the New Testament? Like, I like Jesus, I love Jesus' teaching, but I can't reconcile the Jesus of the New Testament with the God of the Old Testament. And if you're thinking that, I'm so glad you're here, because we're definitely gonna address that. And while we're gonna address both of those things, here's what I wanna confess up front. Neither one of those are my primary concern. Neither one of those are gonna be forward facing in this series. While we'll touch on them, here's what I'm hoping we'll be asking. I'm hoping we're not just gonna be asking, did it happen? If you wanna debate this or debate things about the Jesus and the Old Testament God, I would be happy to do that with you offline. Like, we can start a dialogue and email. Feel free to email me, I'll send you some resources. But for the sake of this series, as we're unpacking this story, this very old and what I would say is a brilliant literary work of art. The question I want us to be asking is not, did it happen, but what does it mean? Like, these old stories that have been preserved, the Bible isn't the only place this flood story is told. There's at least 4 other ancient Mesopotamian narratives that recount from around the same time that this narrative in the Old Testament was written, that recount an ancient flood. And I've studied this narrative, I'll just tell you, exhaustively, like over 100 hours. Like, I have too much content. We could be here till next week. I'll try not to keep you too long today, but we might go a little long. But 100 plus hours, and not only do I believe it happened, but I believe it happens. And I believe it's happening. I believe the story is true to life. Many of us have faced or are facing or will face scenarios or situations or circumstances where things are quietly headed in the wrong direction, and there's catastrophe coming and we don't realize it. Maybe it's in a relationship. It could be in a personal habit. It could be in your leadership or your career. It could be with your finances. It could be in your personal life or in with your integrity. And over the next few weeks, we're gonna unpack this ancient story that I believe gives us a framework for how catastrophe happens and how to avoid it. If you wanna follow along, I would love for you in Genesis chapter 6, if you wanna open a Bible or open a device, if you use the YouVersion Bible or something, if you wanna follow along with us, we're gonna start in Genesis chapter 6, verses 1. But we're isolating one story that's part of a much bigger narrative. And to understand this story from the very first verse, as you're gonna see in a second, we have to understand the context, because just a few pages earlier, if you're thinking of the original audience or even us as an audience, we're only 6 chapters into the whole story of the Hebrew scriptures of the Old Testament. And so we're just 6 chapters in, and only a few chapters have happened before this, and there's all sorts of echoes of what happened in the previous chapter, and we have to understand what happened in the creation story in order to understand this. So if you remember the creation story, it begins where the Spirit of God is hovering. Anybody like the blue? It's hovering, sorry, I geek out on stuff like that. It's hovering over the waters. We sing a song about that, where the Spirit of God's hovering over the waters. But what happens is, in the beginning, as God begins to create, he starts to separate the waters. God's Spirit is hovering over the waters, and this water, the Hebrew word for water is tohu vavohu. It's not the actual word, but it's what describes the water. And it means wild and waste, or formless and void. And what God does in the beginning is he separates the water. And that this is the creation story. That in the beginning, when God created, in the creation story, the very first thing he did in chapters 1 through 3 is he's separating. God is separating the waters, and he's creating land in between. Now, he doesn't just separate the water, he separates light from darkness. And chapters 1 through 3 is all about separation. Then he creates the sun and the moon and the stars to rule over these things that he separated. And then chapters 4 through 6 is expansion. There's this expansion that happens, and God creates birds of the air, and the creatures that crawl along the ground, and animals, and then man, and then he gives man dominion over, to rule over the things that he's created. So there's this separation and this expansion, and what God's doing in this is he's turning chaos, the chaotic, though it's illustrated through the chaotic waters, into order. He's turning chaos into order. And some of you remember this story. When God gets done, he steps back and he looks. And he looks at all that he created. And what we're told in the Genesis account is that God saw all that he created, and he said it was what? It was good. In fact, he doesn't just say it one time, he says it 7 times. He says that all that he saw, all that was created was good. It's the Hebrew word tov. It's good. God saw all these things that he created, and it was good. And then he does something interesting. God gives. He gave dominion. He gave dominion over the earth to the man and the woman. He said, rule over the world. And he said, I'm gonna give you dominion and access to everything in the world except one thing. There's one tree. There's just one rule. I don't want you to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's the first time it's mentioned of Tov and Ra. Don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of Tov and Ra. Beyond that God, this is the basic story. God saw that what he created, he said it was good, and he said, what I want you to do, I'm gonna give it all to you. And this is sort of the cycle of what's happening. He said, what I want you to do is I want you to be fruitful and multiply. I want you to be fruitful and multiply. Which begs the question, what are we being fruitful and multiplying? If you're gonna be fruitful, he says, I want you to be fruitful and I want you to multiply what is good. Now, this is important context because this is the backdrop. This is where the story began that is about to continue in the next several verses. And as we begin the story, you're gonna see an echo of this in chapter 6, verse 1. It begins this way. When man began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, they're doing exactly what God said. They're multiplying. Man is multiplying in the world. And God instructed them to be fruitful and multiply, so this is good, right? Hold on. The sons of God. Now he introduces these fallen angels into the story. We don't have a lot of time to unpack this today, but there was an ancient war in heaven, and these sons of God, these fallen angels that rebelled in heaven, they saw the daughters of man, and they were attractive. They saw them as attractive. It's the Hebrew word tov. And they took as their wives any that they chose. These fallen angels saw the female humans, and they looked, or they seemed tov to them. So they took them. This is another echo of a previous story. In fact, in the Hebrew, it's actually a copy and paste of Genesis chapter 3. In Genesis chapter 3, this is what we see. It's a different cycle. It parallels this first story. But what we're told in Genesis chapter 3 is that the woman saw that the fruit was good for eating, and it wasn't tov, it seemed tov. It seemed good to her. So, the opposite of what God does, she took. She took of the fruit and she ate it. And what she saw seemed good to her, and she took it and she ate it. And what God said would happen, happened. God said, don't eat of this fruit or you will surely die. And some of you know that was the consequence. Death entered the world. And for the first time, their eyes were open to both Tov and Ra. Now, this is the fourth story. This flood story is the fourth story in Genesis, fourth major story, each following this same pattern. Eve saw something that was good, that seemed good to her, and so she took it. Cain saw what was good, and instead of doing the right thing, he took for himself what he thought was good for him, and it didn't go well for him. And Lamech, and that involved death. And then even Lamech, who comes after Cain in the story, you can read about Lamech in chapter 5. He is very violent, and he celebrates violence, but he takes whatever he wants that seems good to him, and this pattern is escalating, and now it's gone cosmic. Now there's this chaos that's creeping back in from the heavens and rising up from the earth. And then the Lord said, my spirit, it shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. Now, we're gonna come back to this 120 years later. Some people think, well, that was the maximum age that man would live now, but he actually refers to people who live longer than that later. I think this means something else. You'll have to come back next week to find that about. But this pattern, this is the pattern that exists, that consequences having to do with an abbreviated life come in each of these stories. That when people saw what seemed what was good, they took it and it abbreviated their life in years. Now, this is important because it didn't just abbreviate in terms of time, it abbreviated in terms of quality. And then here's an interesting thing. At this point in the story, the author inserts something as proof. It's sort of like, let me give you an illustration, is what he's saying. And he inserts in this piece of evidence that proves that what seemed good to Eve and to Cain and to Lamech was not in fact good. And he introduces this with this story about the Nephilim. Now, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days. And also afterwards, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man and they bore children to them. So the Nephilim were the offspring of the fallen angels and the daughters of earth. Are we okay? I know this is a little bit of a weird story, but this is for his original audience. He's saying, you know who they were. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. You know all about them. You know stories about them. You know a story about them, a famous story. Because one of the Nephilim, the offspring of the Nephilim, was Goliath and his brothers and his family. These were giants that were in the land, and they were creating chaos. They were creating chaos for God's people in the beginning, and they were violent and they were evil. And the author's saying, we all know where they came from. We know where this started. This started when the sons of God and the daughters of man, this unnatural thing that was against God's creative order, when they had children, this chaos came back into our world. And it's interesting, he doesn't shy away from saying, hey, they were there before and they were there after. The author's not even hiding that there were things that existed before and after the flood. We're gonna come back to that again. But his point is not that everything died or that everything was gotten rid of in the flood, if you're thinking ahead. But he's using hyperbole. And when you know that in the story, you see it everywhere. He continues, he said, the Lord saw the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Now, does he mean literally that every intention was only evil continually? I don't think so. He's speaking in hyperbole, and he's speaking about what God saw. Now, don't miss this. This is where this contrasts. God now sees something different, and it's not good. As a matter of fact, what seemed good to man was not tov. It was ra. It was evil. And God said when the man sought his own intentions to take what seemed good to him, it ended in ra. Now, this is critical. This whole story is about humans ruling the world as image bearers of God, created to experience and multiply the tov of God. That was the story in Genesis 1. God is good, and he's created you in his goodness, and everything he saw was good. Now he said, now I want you to be fruitful and multiply all that. And God repeatedly points them towards his goodness. And humanity continually disregards God's order and his structure and his instructions and his warnings. And they choose what seems good to them. And what they're actually doing, as we saw at the beginning of chapter 6, is they're doing what God instructed them to. They're being fruitful. And they're multiplying. The problem is, because of what they've taken, what they're being fruitful and multiplying is raw. Now, this is not the way the story was presented to me. In fact, in Genesis chapter 6, it says this. It says, and the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth. Now, what's regrettable about this statement is the word regretted. Because the way it's translated, we don't have a good English word for this word, but the word is literally to comfort oneself. That's what it means, or to console oneself. It's almost like despair, but trying to soothe yourself. So here's God trying to comfort himself in his disappointment. And here's how we know this is because he regretted that he made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So this is what's interesting about this is because if you read some of the other narratives that were written around the same time, that probably if you're into literature, one of them that you might have heard of is the Epic of Gilgamesh. But there's 4 other narratives that are written about this great flood, and there's so many similarities in all the stories. The main difference is the other stories portray God or the gods as either indifferent or vengeful. But that's not what this author writes into the story. In fact, that's easy to read into the flood story. And honestly, it's what I was taught on flannel graph, that this is what God did. He was angry, and so he said, Noah, you go get all the animals, put them in the ark. I'm gonna spare you and the animals, but I'm gonna just wipe out everything else because it's evil. But that's not how the author is portraying God. His beloved creation that was formerly tov, and it was completely tov, is now pervasively compromised. I mean, there's a cosmic problem in the creation, and he's grieved by this. God, in his goodness, in order not to manipulate or control, gave free agency and free will to the humans. And God is grieving because he's seeing the exact opposite of what he intended for his creation. They were created for tov, but now they're multiplying ra in the world. Things are not going as planned. So the Lord said, I will blot out man, whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. And this is the moment where people go, see, this is where the angry God is. But you have to understand this in the context of the story. And I learned this much later. In fact, if you want to do some incredible reading, John Sailhamer, who's a renowned Old Testament professor and Hebrew scholar, he and a guy named Tim Mackey, who's behind the Bible Project, I learned so much from these guys. And what's interesting is if you look at this story, what's actually being described is creation in reverse. And he's saying what's all gonna be blotted out. But in the beginning, he created the birds and then the things that crawl across the ground and then the animals and the man. And this is creation in reverse. It's the opposite of the creation story. What's actually happening is decreation because of man's choices, because of people choosing to follow what seems good to them. Now order is moving back into chaos. And it's not what God intended. It's not what he created. And he's grieving. He's mourning. And what's actually happening, I almost forgot this part, is the waters, the chaos of the original waters are actually moving back in. This is setting context for the creative, the way in which this creative story is being told. And again, I'll just say this, and this will bother some of you. I don't even care if you take this as a metaphor. It's true. This is what's happening when we do what seems right to us as we invite chaos back into our world. Peeking ahead, if you look at how the author, we're not gonna fully go there yet because we wanna reserve it for its own week, but on the day that the flood started, Genesis chapter 7 and verse 11, it says this, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst open and the floodgates of the sky were opened up and came down. And this is what's being pictured, is that because of human choice, the chaotic waters collapse back in on God's created order. And these two things are, instead of being separated and God creating the order that is good, it's bringing chaos back in. And we open ourselves up to Ra, to catastrophe. It's not denying God's agency, by the way, in the consequences. I mean, this is a divine judgment. But Dr. Sailhamer, he frames the judgment differently. And I think this is right. I think this is true. When you really study the literature, the truth is this is not God sitting around manufacturing consequences to hand out to humanity. This is not, an angry version of Santa Claus in heaven shooting lightning bolts at earth. That's not what's going on here. This is God who's consistent with who he is. He's a giver, giving people over to the fruit of their choices. That's what he's doing. And that's exactly, actually, if you like the New Testament, that's how the Apostle Paul describes all of this in the New Testament. Romans chapter 1, he says that God made good and evil, tov and ra, to be plain and obvious. And man exchanged God's wisdom for their own foolishness. That's what they did. And as a result, God gave them over to their sinful desires. He gave them over to Ra. This story is a story of a brokenhearted father watching his kids make choices he knows has real consequences. Consequences he never imagined for them, he never wanted for them. Who in his divine wisdom, he comes to the conclusion of what's best. He makes a judgment. And what's best is choosing to give them over to what they desire, which is not good. It's not intended. It's not what he wants for them. But it's what happened in the story. And whether you believe the story or not, it's what happens in life. And it's what's happening in the world around us right now. If you don't want to admit to that, it's okay. You're in denial. But this is what happens. We see something that seems good to us, and we justify it. We figure out a way to make peace with the fact that this could be possibly something that God would be okay with or could be the right thing for me. And we take it. And it leads to something that's not good. It leads to it leads to catastrophe. I'm just gonna step on some toes for a second. If you don't like that, just pull your feet back in. I won't step on yours. But this is moral relativism in our world. In the name of tolerance and acceptance. I'm not talking about being unkind. Kindness is important. It's the way of Jesus. But in the name of tolerance and acceptance, we think it's dignifying to allow people to have their own truth. You can have your truth and I can have my truth and we can have different truth, even though they're complete opposites. It's like, no, that's delusion. That's denigrating. That's pacifying. That's actually not kind to people. You don't have your truth and I don't have my truth. There's only the truth. That's it. There's no your truth and my truth. There's just the truth. And we should all seek it together and figure out what is the truth. What is true reality? This is the sexual revolution that began back probably in the 50s or 60s. We wanted freedom from the confines of traditional structures, and we wanted to empower people, and we wanted liberation from fidelity and monogamy and purity and the structures that were created, by the Bible. And it's been devastating. It's been objectifying for women, disorienting for younger generations. It's been something that's been horrifying as we've seen people become addicted to an over-sexualized culture and sex itself. It's the digital age. I mean, I don't know if I need to keep going on, but in the name of progress, and again, I have an iPhone and an iPad, and I'm all about technology, but in the name of progress and connection and access, we've created this whole life online in the world, and it's isolated people. It's created anxiety, and again, it's led to addictions. It's led to secret lives, and this is happening in our world. Some of you are thinking, I thought this was a story about a flood and a boat. We're gonna get there. But I think the first question that we're faced with in the narrative is, who gets to define what is good? Come on, really. Be honest with yourself. Who gets to define what is good? Who is the ultimate authority when it comes to what is good for you? Who's the ultimate authority? Who's the ultimate authority about what is good for your marriage, for your kids, for your business, for your finances, for your eyes? Not what's the right answer. We all know the right answer. Here's the question. Who possesses decision rights when it comes to what is good for your life? See, we're really good at justifying what we think is good and right for us, even when we know it disregards God's instructions, his design, his created order, the way in which Jesus taught us to live and to follow in his way, to experience life the way God wanted us to, and the goodness he's directing us toward. That's why Jesus came as a rabbi. And when we choose to follow what we think, what we seem is good, what we're doing is we're claiming authority to define what is good or bad according to our own wisdom. And that doesn't work out so well for us. But it leads us to things like not disclosing the hidden risk involved for our client in doing business with us because it was good to get the deal done. It's misrepresenting your contribution on the project. When you knew a lot of other people did the work, you took the credit because it was good for your career and helped you get the promotion. It's the extra drink after a long, stressful day to finally take the edge off. It seems good, even necessary. It's the extra attention, the vulnerable conversation with the coworker of the opposite sex that's not your spouse, that felt good to you because you feel lonely and you're trying to hide it from your spouse. See, the story isn't just about a boat and a flood. It's about decision rights. And when it comes to what is good, you will either decide or you will discern. You will decide what is good for you, or you will submit and try to discern. They're not all black and white. Try to discern what God has said is good for you. And here's the ultimate question is, where in your life have you held on to the right to decide what is good for you? So we all do this. This happens. We've decided, no, I know better. I know me. And if God and I could have a conversation and I could hear back from him, I'm sure he'd be fine with this because here's my circumstances, here's my situation, as opposed to actively discerning, maybe in community with others, what's actually God's design and what's good for my life based on what he's given me and his truth and his word and the way he's directing me. See, this story is a warning that God will let us decide. And God's a giver. He will give us over to our desires. But there is catastrophe on the other side of it. That's what this story is warning us of. I wanted to name the series, The Flood is Coming, with an exclamation point. The team thought that was too apocalyptic and thought that was a little crazy, and so we came up with a different title. But it is. The flood's coming. And there's several ways in our lives, in our own lives, where we're making decisions, we're justifying things, we're following things that seem good. And these are hard decisions, and they happen all over the place. Several years ago, we were trying to decide. Let's just take it away from you and me for a minute because it's a little more comfortable. We'll talk about our kids. Years ago, I was trying to discern, me and my wife were trying to discern what to do about our kids and phones. Our kids are now 19, 17, 12, and 10, but this is a long time ago, several years ago, almost a decade ago. We're trying to figure out, what do we do about that? And I share a lot more about this in the Parent Summit online. It's a resource that we've just launched. It's a digital resource. It's completely free. You can get it through all of our campuses, all of our churches. And I'll just say this, I need to say up front, we certainly haven't gotten everything right as parents. But on this one, we knew this was a big decision, and we sought wise counsel, and we did our research, and we prayed. And we sensed that what a lot of others were doing that seemed good for their kids, and there were lots of justifiable reasons to do what they were doing, was not good. At least parts of it was not good. And one of the things we decided, amongst other things, and don't feel judged by this isn't a right or wrong thing, it's just what we decided. We decided that there would be no social media for our kids. It's one of the things that we decided. And we knew it would be a battle. And we didn't know how it would go for our kids, especially as the years went along and we were moving back to Georgia from Arizona. Both of our kids were in their teenage years. One was in 8th grade and one was in 9th grade. And this is how everybody's communicating, everybody's staying connected, and how I know what's going on. Everyone has social media. That's what I heard over and over and over. But I want to read you something that I treasure and that my wife and I treasure as a trophy. What I want to read you is my daughter's college essay. Last fall, she sent me a text and said, "Dad, can you help me edit my college essay?" She had chosen a prompt. The prompt was, write about something that you are grateful for that you haven't always been grateful for. And I want to read you what she wrote in her essay. By the way, she asked me to edit it, and when I read it, I just cried. So I'm gonna try to make it through this, but I just responded and said, it's perfect. And this is how it goes. It begins, but everyone else is doing it. This was always my opening line, my attempt at negotiating with her. Her response was always the same, but you're not everyone else. Frustrating. It was so frustrating because I knew she was right. When I would ask, why do you have to be this way? My mom would respond, you can hate me if you have to. I'm just looking out for you. It's not that deep, I'd say. You're overthinking this. Ironic, coming from her 13-year-old daughter. But every time she had some kind of way to flip the script, causing me to wonder that maybe, just maybe, because she was 30 years older than me, she might know a little more than me. I can't even remember the first time the rule was spoken, only that it existed. My parents had decided when we were little that there would be no social media for my brothers and I, at least not yet. They never really told us when we could get it, but I can just hear them saying, when you move out of our house, you can do whatever, but while you live under our roof, you follow our rules. The timeline was vague. So I sat there, 13 years old, my mind buzzing, believing I was missing out on everything. But part of me, deep down, wondered if maybe, in her annoying, frustrating way, my mom was right. As the years went on, I would watch some of my closest friends struggle with comparison. They would be drawn into drama, and they struggle with their own view of themselves. And while I had some of those struggles, as most high school girls do, I truly believe that I somehow escaped a whole lot of hurt and pain because of my distance from social media. And for that, I will be forever grateful. I'm grateful that 13-year-old me didn't have to wonder if she looked good enough in a photo because that photo wasn't going anywhere anyways. I'm grateful that 15-year-old me wasn't scrolling, looking at the pictures people were posting and wondering why she wasn't invited. I'm grateful that I wasn't known by the things I posted or the people I followed. People's perceptions of me were based off real interactions with me. While I was frustrated and I disagreed for so many years, I see now it's true. I'm not everyone else. And I don't want to be, because I wasn't created to be. My mom wasn't just telling me no. She wasn't trying to single me out or make my life harder. Deep down, she was reminding me that my value is not defined by everyone else, that I didn't have to chase what everyone else was chasing in order to matter in this world. As I look back, I see that those words have so much bigger meaning and have affected me in more ways than I can possibly imagine. God created us to be set apart, not because we're better than anyone else, but because we are loved enough to be different. At 13, being different was most definitely sounded like a punishment, but it really was protection. I'm grateful she refused to let me blend in when blending in could have cost me of who I was becoming. Now, she's a great writer. Let me just say this. Here's the problem with being an adult. We think we know better. And worse, we get to decide if we want to, what we think is good for us, because we're all grown up. And we don't have to follow somebody else's rules or live under somebody else's roof. And here's what I want you to know. This is the point of the story, is this is the oldest problem. It's the oldest temptation. The story is a reminder to us that following what seems good to us doesn't end well. Some of the most dangerous circumstances in life, they don't feel dangerous at all. They feel normal. They feel like living under clear blue sky. Like Noah and the people around him. But the flood was coming. Think about it. Marriages don't collapse overnight. They drift till people feel like strangers. It doesn't feel like a big deal to abandon somebody or to have an affair. Addictions don't begin as sickness. They start as relief or escape, and they lead to imprisonment. Financial trouble doesn't start with somebody hanging a noose around your neck. We charge it because we can, and we borrow it because somebody will let us. And then we lose a job. We face creditors and bankruptcy. And then we have bad credit or no credit. And the list goes on and on and on. And God has created structures. He's given instructions. Jesus came as a rabbi to lead us in a way that is good for us. So let me ask you one more time. Who gets to define what is good for you? You owe it to yourself to be honest with yourself and to get clear on this. You will either decide and define for yourself what is good, or you will choose to surrender to your Heavenly Father who loves you, who's grieved by the catastrophe he sees coming. And you'll allow him to define what is good for your life. And if you decide to chase after what seems good to you, God, being good, being loving, not wanting to control you, but wanting you to trust him, he will give you over to the desires and the consequences that accompany them. Now, there is hope coming. Quick preview. Noah, he found favor in the eyes of the Lord. If you're still not sold on God's grief, you can't make this up. This is amazing. In the midst of this cosmic collapse, God's eyes rest on a man named Noah, whose name, you ready for this? It actually means to comfort or to console. God's comforted by one who would trust him. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. And Noah walked with God. This is an echo of Genesis 1 in the cool of the day. The man and his wife walked with God. Genesis 2, excuse me. This is communion with God, the way it was designed to be. And God seeing what's coming. In the midst of the choices of the world, some that weren't Noah's, because that's sometimes how it works. Sometimes the choices aren't yours that lead to catastrophe in life. This is what he instructs Noah to do. He says, make for yourself an ark. And it's not what you think. But that's where we're going to pick it up next week. Let me pray for you. God, I pray for somebody here today, and the truth is their life is quietly headed towards a catastrophe. And they're kind of hoping it won't happen, or hoping it won't come, or it feels so far in the distance that they're wondering if it really matters, or if somehow they'll get away with it, and there really is no getting away with it. The truth is when we choose to use our own agency to follow what we think is good, specifically when it disregards what you've instructed us to, or what you've instructed us is good. The order and structure that you've created for life so that we could thrive in life, so that we could experience abundant life. We multiply consequences and difficulty, and what seemed good is anything but good. In fact, oftentimes, evil is a result of that. So I just pray for somebody who's here today, somebody who's listening. All these things aren't clear in black and white, but you said over and over in the wisdom literature that you would provide wisdom to those who ask. So help us, give us wisdom today to discern what's good, what's right. I believe there's tons of people in the sound of my voice that truly are seeking and desiring what's good in life. It's at the core of us. It's what we were designed for. So lead us, guide us, provide for us the path that is good in life. Give us the courage to trust you and follow you in it, even when it doesn't make sense. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Yeah, I think we can clap even though we can't hear us. That was unbelievable. So if you're, maybe it's your first time back in church and you're like, wow, we just went from 0 to 60 really quick. Took me, because you have a Heavenly Father who loves you and cares about you. For those of you who are like, okay, now what was that Parent Summit thing again? I ignored you and Holly talking about it, but Joel made me really want to dial in, okay? It's number 1 on the top 3 website. Again, it's an extraordinary, extraordinary resource. But beyond the resource, I hope we'll all take what Joel said to heart and take it with us this week, and don't miss part 2 of this series. It's gonna be amazing. We'll see you next time. Thanks for being here.